Good evening, everyone, folks in the room and also folks online. This is what is the date? It is January 15th already, 2025, the Transportation Public Safety, Sanitation and Environment Committee. We're going to get started here and we'll do a roll call. And Nancy's going to have this one out. She's very good at multitasking.
Vincent Cerrito.
Here.
Nancy Kong. Here. Lee Berman.
Here.
Solomon Fletcher.
Here.
Sean Garcia.
Here.
Charlie Colson.
Here.
Michelle Coopersmith. Present. Judge Aliao. Sherry Ryan. Here. David Crane.
Here.
Canal Hernandez. All right.
All right, thanks. So tonight we have 4 agenda items that we're going to go over. Appreciate DOT being in the room, giving us an informational session. And then we also have 2 requests for loading zones. And one is agenda item 1 and the other one is agenda item 4. I'm gonna bring actually agenda item 4 up so it can be right next to Clinton Street so we can talk about the same thing. So the first one up is the request for a loading zone expansion on Clinton Street between Stanton and Rivington Streets. And then also an alternate means to provide a larger, we're calling it 18-wheeler. We're going to talk about that, serving Clinton Street businesses. And so this is one that we had heard last month, or actually 2 months ago, I'm sorry, back in November. And we had asked, some more clarification questions from DOT just on how we do these loading zones. And I think everyone on the committee, and forgive me if I forgot, we did get some clarification back from DOT on this, and this is actually a request. And I think we do have somebody that's joining us remotely that can talk a little bit about the businesses needed for it on Clinton Street. But there's also this neighborhood loading zone on Stanton Street that we're also going to be talking about. If you, for folks on the line that want to talk about Clinton Street, if you want to put your hand up, we can make you a speaker.
Ask a clarifying question.
Okay. Of
So
course.
this one is a commercial loading, unloading for like 16-wheeler trucks, is that correct?
It's a commercial loading we're going to talk about it like we're calling it a 16-wheeler, but it's probably a large scale box truck. Yeah, box truck. But then there's also this request for a neighborhood loading zone on Stanton Street, which is more, and Kate will correct me if I'm wrong, but that is more so of that could be used for like Ubers or those types of taxis to drop off, and also could be used for loading zones as well.
Yeah, there's 3 purposes.
Yeah.
Those.
Yeah.
It's things like FedEx and large, commercial deliveries. It is for, the taxi kind of services, and it is also for residents to load and unload.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. So 2 different things.
So for the Clinton one, it is existing one. I don't know, Kate, is it commercial?
Yeah, there's an existing commercial loading zone in front of
Yeah,
49 Clinton.
there is an existing one, but it's not long enough to accommodate the trucks, latest connected vans called wheelers. They're the long ones that deliver alcohol. And it's not long enough to accommodate them. So the business owners have told us what they do is they either double park, which stops traffic, or they park on the sidewalk. So what we're asking is just to extend the existing one so that it can accommodate the trucks that deliver beer.
So Dermot's supposed to be on here?
Pardon?
Dermot is supposed to be on
Yeah,
here?
is he on?
Dermot, can you raise your hand if you're on?
I didn't see him.
Because there's like an iPhone without a name.
Well,
Don't
Vinny
make
just
action.
asked about if anyone was there to speak to it.
Yeah. Does anybody on? And we have 2 hands up.
No, those are for the next one.
That's
Yeah,
the next
Those
one.
are for East Broadway.
Yeah.
Dermot's
Yeah, I don't
Is
know.
anybody online for Clinton Street that wants to speak for it?
Pardon?
Should I call Megan?
Sure. Call who?
Megan?
No, she's out of the country.
Oh, so that's why Dermot's.
But she said her husband and other people are trying to be on. She also is contributor to the resolution
Yeah.
specifically.
I can speak to this, like where, this is a need on Clinton Street especially, it is one of those corridors coming off Williamsburg Bridge, kind of going north. It'll help with the traffic. And I know we had a draft resolution that I circulated to everyone here. This is something that we do want to do a resolution to send to DOT. So, does anybody on the committee have any questions before we kind of look at the resolution? So we'll bring that up. And I apologize too, maybe, I don't know if Kate or even Susan, if you want to clarify that mobility that we were just talking about today, the mobility PowerPoint presentation, mobility, transportation mobility, or micro mobility,
The micro hub.
micro hub, which we're
Is
going
that the
to,
one that I
The micro
emailed
hub.
about?
yeah. I don't know if that's related to any of this either. That's a little bit different,
Yeah,
but,
No, I don't think so.
okay,
I was asking for another meeting.
another meeting. Okay, I'll look at that. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read it and then we'll edit it. I think we already have one edit that Leah brought up.
It's not.
It's not showing up.
Oh, so,
Nancy's computer is not connected to that. And
Yes, it should be.
yeah, because she's now the.
She's a host.
Are you sure?
no, but that's not the computer. Like, how is her computer connected to that TV? It should be that computer. I thought that,
That computer is connected, that one's not.
but that, for whatever reason, when you logged,
But I
when you
made,
started.
you logged on to the meeting, right? You did, and I made you a host.
Right, but that computer is not showing Zoom on
But
that
it's-
TV screen. No, it has to be from
Oh.
there.
Maybe sharing your own screen.
Nancy's computer is just Nancy's computer. Like this guy.
Oh, I see, it's on here. Right. I don't understand why Nancy isn't showing that.
Well, because this is her actual.
No, she should be, this is connected to Zoom. This is a Zoom.
But Nancy's computer has no connection to that TV.
What's connected to that? TV?
It should be from the Zoom.
Well, that Zoom's not even on.
No, it's not even on. It's weird.
That Zoom's not even on this one, whatever computer that's. connected
Are
to.
you sharing screens?
Yeah, but my thing is on there.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
on here.
I understand that. I'm saying that there is no computer connected to that TV screen. And it shouldn't be Nancy's, it should be an office computer.
It should be this one,
That's
she
right.
should be on the Zoom.
Right, I know, but when you log into Zoom on this office computer, it wasn't showing on the TV screen, so there's some disconnect. That being said, does anyone in the room care if it's not on this one?
Well, yeah, we have a number.
People
Let
may-
me, let
people at
me,
home can
let
see
me
it.
try this again.
Is this a touch?
I'm going to relog on.
You missed Vinny, I think you can just use this to everyone in the room. because
Yeah,
there's no
I'm
visuals.
just gonna go ahead and read it. We'll figure out the tech. So this is a support for a request to expand loading zone on Clinton Street between Stanton and Rivington to accommodate eight-wheeler deliveries. The motion is, whereas Clinton Street has many hospitality businesses that receive deliveries from 18-wheeler trucks and to accommodate the frequent deliveries by 18-wheeler trucks. And whereas there is a loading zone on Clinton between Stanton and Rivington, but this zone is not long enough to accommodate the frequent deliveries by 18-wheeler trucks, causing the trucks to double park to unload or park on the sidewalk, creating unsafe conditions for pedestrians. And whereas the double parking on Clinton, which is a narrow street, causes traffic backups. And whereas businesses on Clinton Street have requested that the current loading zone be expanded to accommodate 18-wheeler deliveries, thereby mitigating traffic problems. So therefore be resolved that Community Board 3 requests that DOT expand the delivery zone on Clinton Street to accommodate 18-wheeler deliveries.
There you go.
Perfect. Just in time.
I wasn't set up properly.
So Lee rightfully brought up that 18-wheeler trucks is really not the right terminology we should be using here. So I think you suggested what, larger box
There's box
trucks?
trucks, that box trucks can be up to 35 feet in New York City.
Okay,
So box truck is the universal term.
Yeah. Should drop in the title too. So we will let, Nancy's gonna go ahead and do that. One thing that we had failed to include on here is the neighborhood loading zone on Stanton Street. So we would like to add in for, maybe we have to add in a where is as well. Sure.
I would make that a separate.
That's my, Kate, would it be helpful to be 2 separate resolutions, one for the Stanton loading zone, neighborhood
Should be
loading zone?
totally separate.
Okay,
I think you could include it in this one, but we would understand if you chose to make a second.
do it separate.
We always do separate,
Going
totally
to
separate.
separate.
ones.
I would be okay with that.
I think that applies clear.
I didn't realize it was.
I
Got
think-
confused.
Well, it's 2 months ago.
What?
It's 2 months ago. Okay, so for this one, does everyone feel comfortable with the way this is written?
Can you make it larger or no? I'm just thinking for people at home.
Sure.
This wasn't, oh, it wasn't talking. Was not mentioned. The Stanton.
Oh, the Stanton. But no, it's between, oh, yeah, you're right.
It's Lisbon between Irvington and Stanton.
Well, so should we put it on
That's the first
next month's agenda?
What, oh, the Stanton
For
one?
Stanton,
No, it's not.
It wasn't on the agenda,
yeah,
so
so
that
let's
is an issue.
do that. I'm okay actually doing that. That sits with our,
I mean,
yeah, let's defer.
it's because if someone wanted to come and talk to us, they don't know that it's on.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a way to move forward. Okay, so we're not going to add do a resolution for Stanton. We'll put that on next month's,
Okay,
and we'll put that, and then
Did someone do a draft basis for that?
I'll do one.
No, I was just asking if there was one and I missed it. That's
Oh,
all.
no, we're not gonna do that. Okay, so let's, does anyone online, that's joining us hybridly want to speak to this? If you can, if you do, just please put up your hands. I know we do have 2 other hands, but I think they're up to the next agenda item. Anyone in this room? No.
Actually, I'll ask one question, just wanna make sure, like,
Sure.
we don't need to, I know you just said what a box truck is, do we need to define that in this, so it's clear how long we're asking for the expansion to be? Or is it fine by just saying the length of the box truck?
They asked me earlier and I said to accommodate the trucks that deliver beer.
Well, they can be up to 35
Up to
feet.
35
So
feet.
I would just put maybe trucks up to 35 feet.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Just to be clear.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. It's usually better for our board members to add a little more definition to things like that. Oh, sure. Yeah, so that the FAQs are answered by the text itself.
so delivers up to 35 feet. So we, under the, therefore, we'll, we just added up to 35 feet after deliveries. Okay, I see nobody raise their hands online. Want to take a vote here? I think this one we could probably just do a show of hands. That's okay. Like we have a unanimous approval.
Well, you have to put the number in.
I will.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. Okay, and like I mentioned, I'm just gonna flip-flop the agenda a little bit, and we're gonna talk about Sewer Park Cooperative, where they're requesting a, looks like 3 loading zones along East Broadway, Grand Street, actually, and 2 along Grand Street, 1 along at East Broadway. And I believe Sewer Park is here to speak to that, and so,
so just drag the corner down. That's it. So,
Stephen, you should be able to speak. Fortunately, we can't hear you though, if you're speaking.
We have to promote him, did you promote him to panelist?
Yeah,
No. You want to stop sharing the screen?
Is there a?
Oh, yes.
is there volume on that television?
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, good on you.
It's not muted.
Speaker's
Your
not
speaker is
working.
not working.
I'm unmuted.
Look at maybe the volume. Let me, wait, please,
Sullivan.
don't do that.
It's on the TV.
Yeah.
If the volume's up,
Can you hear
I'm
me?
gonna
So
pop
let's
in and
see,
see by
please.
hand.
excuse me, let me go.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear him.
All right, Stephen, just bear with us. We're gonna see if we can get the volume
I
working on ours.
unmuted it, see if you
If
can.
you-
Stephen, if you could try to speak again?
Can you hear me? Testing, 1, 2.
Make sure you press the little arrow next to audio. That little arrow. No, the little arrow.
Testing.
No,
This one?
no, just that little arrow right there, and see where the input's coming from. Yeah.
They
So
can
make
hear,
sure we
You know?
have the
so they can
right
hear it.
input. They can hear
They
it.
can hear us.
The speaker is a Samsung, which is it's the TV screen, right?
So maybe if you can just turn it around.
A lot of feedback now.
Same as it.
There we go.
There we go.
You can mute that.
Nancy, you have to mute
You
yours.
can hear me, right?
Stephen, we can hear you.
Oh, good, excellent.
All right, thanks for bearing with us.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting us and thank you for letting us express our concerns. My name is Stephen Barish. I'm the general manager of Seward Park, and accompanying me is Cheyenne Marrero, who is also has been hired by us to keep a good relationship with the community. So she might come up to some of these meetings in the future if she's invited for other things that we may have going on at Seward Park. But for today, I wanted to discuss something that's always been a real concern of mine, and is actually more of a concern now, and it's something that's been brought up to me by many of my shareholders, and that is double parking. Double parking has always been an issue. It creates an unsafe environment because the cars that are traveling in that direction then have to go onto the oncoming lanes to actually avoid the double parked car. This year alone, we delivered about 13,000 packages at Seward Park. So you can imagine the volume that we have there. We're comprised of 1,700 units and Amazon, UPS, food deliveries. We're constantly having to move them to try to facilitate a safer environment for our shareholders. So what we're asking is that you consider loading zones for these type of vehicles.
Okay. Could you expand, you're, as I understand it, just maybe, I don't know if we can bring up a map on the screen. Nancy just gave me a look, but there's 3 locations, and would you be able to speak to just all the 3 locations you're asking for?
Well, look,
The-
I mean, I can speak to the entire neighborhood, really. It's not just the locations itself. It's for the location, East Broadway is a 2-lane street that is a very, very busy street because it also connects to the bridge. And a lot of the problems happen there. As cars are coming and trying to get to the bridge, there's a double parked car, then you'll have cars going on oncoming traffic, holding that up. People don't see the cars coming as they're crossing the street due to these big, massive Amazon trucks and UPS trucks. So for the most part, East Broadway is a place we'd like to see them. It would also, like I said, alleviate a lot of traffic, a lot of issues. And that's going to be true for everybody there. And the traffic itself, I mean, just the amount of traffic it causes and honking horns that it produces is also massive.
Yeah, and I guess, I apologize, I probably should have been a little bit more clear. It's the locations of just where along in the building front, like where Amazon right now, where they're parking, because again, we'll do this resolution, we'll provide it to DOT. DOT will look to see where they could actually put the loading zone, and just to make sure it's like aligned with actually like the way the operation of the building functions. And I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to that, so maybe we can, make our resolution here a little bit more glorified, I guess, to be a little bit more direct of what we're asking for.
So really what we're asking for is, I mean, I would defer to you in terms of where the correct place to put them is, to carve that out would be, but Generally, it would be like more in front of the building, in front of, like right on a corner of East Broadway, and I forget the cross street that comes off of, Grand, not Clinton, the one on the opposite side. So closer to that corner somewhere.
Jefferson.
Jefferson, yes, closer to like Jefferson, and then the second one could be further down on East Broadway as well. And I know we have some on Clinton, but Clinton also has potential for freeing up some space.
So, and then I apologize. So
And Broad,
you're looking for a loading zone on East Broadway on the north side, closer to Jefferson,
and on Grand as well.
and on Grand Street. And is that closer to Norfolk, Suffolk?
Yeah, closer to Norfolk.
Closer to Norfolk. And I have here that we had 2 locations on Grand Street. Is it,
So that would be one, and then, and if we could do something further east, I forget the exact location now where we wanted to put them, but, there are 2 on East Broadway, and then there would be 2 on Grand, which are, so the buildings run parallel. There's 2 buildings on one side of Clinton, and there's 2 buildings on the other side of Clinton. So basically, the proposition would be to put loading zones on either entrance, one being on East Broadway and the other being on Grand, and in both locations.
got it. So the one between, let's say the one on Grand Street between Clinton and Pitt Street, you'd like to see more, maybe, is it more centered? Like closer to like where Rich Street and like St. Mary's is, in that area?
No, not there.
Not there.
Closer to Clinton.
Closer to Clinton, exactly.
Okay,
Closer to Clinton. So again, I defer to you because there's fire pumps there. There's a bunch of other things that are there, and I'm not sure exactly where they would go, but I'm happy to walk around with somebody from DOT and take a look at it and maybe propose something.
sure. Thank you. And I guess a question just for Kate. And so like when, with this type of thing where it's a little bit more, it's a cooperative, longer blocks, that type of thing, and trying to organize it close to their entrances and how they function, is that something like DOT would work with them directly on like what you're safe, that we can do safely? And
So we don't necessarily work directly with the buildings. I mean, if you can think back to last year, we had a similar
sorry,
traffic
Kate.
thing. Oh, sorry.
no, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Thanks. Yeah, so we don't necessarily work directly with the buildings when citing the locations. We take the request from the buildings and ultimately the community board and review them and see which area is most suitable for a loading zone, or in some cases, we may do no parking or no standing, because those regulations can also be used for pickup and drop off, but not so much for the commercial deliveries and loading and unloading.
Okay, all right. So for us, if in our resolution, if we have the locations, what they're thinking of, if we put it in there, but obviously it's going to be DOT's where it's safe and legal.
Yes,
You'll
yeah,
do
we'll
that.
look at the locations individually if you include them in the resolution.
Okay. I have no questions, but does anybody else? Lee?
Yeah,
So you
well,
got-
could we request that they work in consultation with the property manager? Since they know where their entrances are, which entrances may be more conducive to getting to their package room, et cetera. So that this time it actually is, some collaboration.
I'll think about that. Yeah, we will, we can definitely take those requests into account. There have been instances where we have spoken with property owners when they have follow-up questions or requests about a loading zone, but it's not necessarily, we will not cite a loading zone. That is their preference over our professional survey of the location.
But is it accurate that you do not always speak with or communicate with property managers?
For all loading zones, or when we receive specific requests?
Well, in both of those situations, when you receive specific requests as well as loading zones, as Vinnie mentioned, these are super blocks, these are large cooperatives, that are managed by one entity. So certainly here it's easier. I'm a little concerned to hear that, from what I just gathered from your response, was that DOT isn't necessarily taking into consideration those on-the-ground experts that are most familiar with their property when requesting specific locations. Again, I'll leave it at that.
And I think what we just heard was information about where the deliveries and the drop-offs take place, and we're happy to take more feedback into consideration when we're looking at the location. But again, it is going to be, we're going to have to look at it as well.
Yeah.
These are not loading zones for these co-ops. I mean, it's great they've requested it, and certainly they're very large buildings and they got some pretty complicated entrances. I'm sure that they're gonna coordinate. I'm not at all concerned that DOT will make the decision. They're gonna do just fine. And there are other large buildings on Grand Street and many residential buildings on East Broadway. I don't want us to put in anything more particular than, you know, we've got the addresses of the four large buildings in there. Especially, let's not take the words that were used by Stephen, I think, because I don't think that's accurate. One of them would be directly in front of Seward Park, the park, not the co-op, just looking at the maps. Let's just not get too particular. It'll be fine.
Anything else, Sean?
Yeah, I don't know if this goes in the resolution per se, but we do know that Lido's opening up, right? For 408 Grand this summer, and that's gonna be a massive operation, gonna need loading zones along Grands.
That's a good point.
So you know, that's that Clinton
Right directly across the street
Yeah.
from Target, yeah.
I mean, they have that, like, that's on Clinton Street, I think they've got their.
Don't get me started with Clinton Street. Don't get me
Oh,
started.
I know, it's like, because their loading zones are directly across the street from the Target's loading zone, where the old Rite Aid.
Do
They
they have
have-
a loading zone?
Yeah, they've got a gate that
Yeah,
goes
to be
up.
clear, we need more of these everywhere. We need
Yeah.
these like every few blocks. So
Yeah.
let's get these going. These are great.
I agree, David, yeah. Okay, anybody else want to speak? Does anybody else want to speak a little bit? I like, you know, David kind of talked about like not being specific with locations and, you know, leaving it to a little bit. Does anybody want to speak to that of how we want to do the resolution? Because I want to jump into that.
Before you get to them, so David, my point wasn't specific locations, it was
Coordinating.
coordinating
Discussing
with
the stakeholders.
right, with those property managers, whether they were elsewhere.
I like that. That's a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, coordinating with both and stakeholders.
Okay, we have some hands from folks online. We'll let you speak.
Well, who's going first?
Bill, you go.
Okay. My name is Bill Ferns. I live in Seward Park Co-op. I'm also been very involved in trying to manage the traffic in the neighborhood. I'm here to speak in support of adding more loading zones to the neighborhood of Seward Park Co-op. Especially with the opening of Essex Crossing, there's been an explosion of businesses and residences in the area south of Delancey between Essex and Clinton down to East Broadway, which is basically where Seward Park is. Also, with the dramatic increase in online shopping, there has been an explosive growth of delivery vehicles coming into the neighborhood. Right now, delivery and service vehicles end up parking in crosswalks, bike lanes, bus stops, and even traffic lanes, as Steve Barisha mentioned, creating hazardous conditions for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers alike. I have a bunch of photos. I can put them in a document and send them to you if you want to see just how often it happens. I have more recent photos, but to be honest, I used to send them into 311 and I gave up because the 7th precinct would close the case without showing up. But I have them. And it's a lot. I mean, really, if there's a crosswalk, there's a truck that's parked in it. If there's a bike lane, there's a truck that's parked in it. If there's a driveway, there's a truck that's parked in it. So having these would be very good. I don't have a strong opinion about the specific locations of the loading zones, though I think having one on Broome Street between Clinton and Suffolk would maybe help facilitate deliveries to many of the Essex Crossing buildings, because the loading docks for Essex Crossing are problematic. They are on the main streets going to Williamsburg Bridge, but that's not the issue here. I would suggest, though, that the commercial spots be metered. I don't know if that the plan is that to do that, because otherwise, you know, some businesses can like take the spot up for the whole day without any sort of incentive to keep moving, and that would defeat the purpose of the loading zones. That's it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Bill.
Linda?
Don't
Sure,
they
Susan.
have to be? Here you go.
Don't they have to be actively loading and unloading to use them?
Yes.
So you don't need meters because if they're not actively loading and unloading, it's illegal to park there.
Well,
But what,
then
that's a
hopefully you
whole
should show
nother
more often
issue.
to ticket them then.
It's a whole nother issue, but we also want to encourage people to use them too,
Correct.
you know, for loading.
When, actually, I know that some loading areas, and it's mostly like Midtown, I think that there are metered. Is it more like commercial zones? That's where DOT meters loading zones?
We do have metered commercial parking throughout Manhattan, but I don't have a list of examples in CB3.
Okay.
But that's parking, not loading.
Yes, there are commercial parking meters.
We may have one on
Are
South
those the
Street for
same things
buses.
as loading zones?
They're not, because then you can park.
But
It's
they're
a
not
different
loading
thing.
zones. It's a different, park your
That's a
truck.
utility
Yeah.
truck.
Got it. Okay. that's
South
helpful.
Street, there was set up for charter buses to have, and maybe that's the same thing, but there is a community meter thing specifically for buses. At least it was at one point.
Okay, Linda?
Yeah, hi, I'm Linda Jones. I live in Seward Park Co-op, 212 East Broadway, which basically, what I see loading, unloading for our building is on Clinton Street. And we're all tied up with the loading, unloading from the supermarket, Metro Acres, that's there. Plus all of the deliveries, plus move outs and move ins that take place through that particular entrance. I don't know if it's more than what happens on East Broadway, but I'm feeling it might be. I hope DOT would look at that situation on Clinton Street, because it's often, you know, Clinton Street already has a wide bike lane. So there's really 2 narrow lanes and that's it for cars. And if the trucks are parking in one of the lanes, then the cars have to go into oncoming traffic, as Steve mentioned, and it's very dangerous. So everybody is in danger. The bicyclists, because they get in the bike lane, and pedestrians, because people become impatient and do stupid things. So just obviously DOT is going to look at all of this and make a decision, but I'll make a plea for Clinton Street.
All right, thanks, Linda. I appreciate it. Bill, Steve, thanks for everything. I'll just bring it back to the community real quick if anyone has anything to speak to in the hand up.
Yeah.
Michelle?
So I actually have incorrectly been told by COAB that I have a conflict with this, so I can't actually vote on it. And I'm not going to vote because they threatened me with a $25,000 fine because they incorrectly interpreted the city charter for me to be under a different standard than community board members is, and told me that I have a private interest in these loading zones, although community board members, as our rules on the bulletin board out there say, community board members cannot vote on things that may result in a personal and direct economic gain to the member. I cannot imagine how a loading zone would economically benefit me. This is purely about traffic safety for myself and all the residents of the Lower East Side. Anyway, I have to disclose that conflict before I speak. And I just want to say that there are 4 addresses in this resolution, but that does not mean, and maybe this is related to Kate, that we only need 4 neighborhood loading zones, as Linda described, like, because the buildings that people understand go diagonally, like almost like the hypotenuse between like Clinton and East Broadway, between Grand and Clinton, and between Montgomery and East Broadway, and then another one just abuts Grand Street. So anyway, I hope that DOT will consider, specifically in the resolution we put adjacent to, we didn't ask for 4 loading zones or 3, it just like please, we're pleading that we need something here, and I live on East Broadway. Linda's more on Clinton Street, so I see the double parking on East Broadway. Bill sees it on Grand and Clinton, so, I hope that you guys like take it holistically about what might be necessary. I've been pleading for neighborhood loading zones in this neighborhood for, it feels like years now. It's been in our district needs. We are not, for whatever reason, DOT is not giving any to us, below Delancey Street, on our side of Essex Street. So this is a distinct plea, and I thank all of my members who will support this. I hope that's helpful context.
Thanks. Anybody else? Susan?
Hey, can't people also go online in addition to all
I did
this?
that. Oh, I
People
did
can
it.
go online and ask for specific locations,
Yes.
and so I just want to let people know they
Yes.
can also do that.
I would love to hear from DOT why they
And-
ignored the millions of requests.
Let me finish. And next month, we are actually going to have one on 12th Street that DOT is bringing before us because the resident of the street suggested it, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So I
And
just want to encourage people to suggest places.
Okay. All right, so we do have a draft resolution here to review. And I apologize, I'm very nasally, so I'll read it, but.
There we go.
Right, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so here is our motion. Whereas Seward Park Cooperative comprises 4 residential buildings and multiple commercial spaces bordered by Grand Street, East Broadway, and Essex Street. And whereas here are approximately 1,700 units and 5,000 residents of Seward Park Housing Cooperation. And whereas currently Seward Park Cooperative residents must load and unload general pickups and groceries in the travel lane in front of their buildings, and also ride shares and taxis waiting for residents must idle in the travel lane, causing traffic congestion and noise pollution. And whereas with the rise in the use of all kinds of delivery services, including Fresh Direct, Amazon, UPS, and FedEx delivery trucks, increasingly park and moving traffic lanes, impeding the flow of vehicular traffic, leading to honking and unsafe pedestrian conditions. And whereas there is a need for permanent neighborhood loading zones adjacent to 208, 212 East Broadway, between Jefferson and Clinton, 264, 268 East Broadway, between Montgomery and Samuel Dickinstein Plaza, 383, 387 Grand Street, between Norfolk Street and Suffolk Street, and 413, 417 Grand Street, between Clinton Street and Attorney Street, so that residents can utilize the space for loading, unloading, and for the higher vehicles to use in order to not cause traffic congestion on the narrow one-way street. And whereas the Seward Park Cooperative General Manager and Board of Directors has asked the Community Board 3 to support the implementation of permanent neighborhood loading zones in front of East Broadway, 208 East Broadway, 264 East Broadway, 383 Grand Street, 413 Grand Street, which would limit traffic impacts because residents would no longer need to use travel lanes for loading and loading. So therefore be resolved that Manhattan Community Board 3 supports the proposal for the addition of 60-foot long, approximately 3 to 4 car lengths, permanent neighborhood loading zones adjacent to East Broadway, Grand Street, and Grand Street. 2 locations of each. There you go.
Okay, there are 3 reasons for these zones. And in my mind, the most important is only mentioned once here. I think this is very much weakens the resolution. So I'd like us to talk about fixing that. The most important one is the commercial vehicles doing loading and unloading, and it's only mentioned once in like the 3rd paragraph.
For residences, you mean?
Well, for residences, but it's the commercial vehicles, it's the FedExes and down to like, Fresh Directs.
Mhm.
And that's only mentioned as, that's the entire topic of the 4th whereas clause. Everywhere else, we're talking about residents loading and unloading themselves or ride shares, and that is not the main purpose for them. It's fine to include that.
Residents loading and unloading?
But if we're going to mention in 3 different places for the convenience of residences, I would actually say we should delete most of those references and just let it say there's a need for a loading zone. If we're going to say there's a need for these purposes, it must start with the main purpose, which is commercial vehicles loading and unloading. And so, and whereas 1, 2, 3, fourth whereas probably should be close to the top. It's about delivery services. The fifth whereas, we should delete everything that says residents can utilize the space.
But residents.
I think they can.
Sure, they are, but why we did not mention in there so that it can be used for truck loading and unloading for commercial vehicle. We should at least mention commercial vehicles at that point. I think this may have led to the Conflict of Interest Board making a mistake, to tell you the truth, if they saw anything like this. It's not for the residents largely. I mean, it's allowed. But the main purpose is not for the convenience of residences, which is how we actually almost end this thing.
I mean, it's curious just because I want to go back to the resolutions that we did for Essex Crossing for the Suffolk Street or Broome Street, I think it was, and then not Essex Crossing, the other new building on Suffolk. They asked for loading zones, and that was specific for like move in, move out of residences and that. It wasn't commercial, it wasn't anything like that. I mean, I guess it's going to be used for commercial. So I
Sure,
agree
someone
with
may
you a
have
bit, like
phrased
the
it in their
commercial
own
is.
arguments, however, but I think when we send it up, we
Yeah.
should make it clear that we understand that this is not, that's not the only purpose for it. And I think it's lost in this. I
Yeah,
really do. There's one disconnected paragraph, the fourth whereas, where we talk about the kinds of delivery services, including all those things. That is the biggest impact for safety. I am not impacted if someone has even double parked just to let grandma, out of the car, if that's what they're doing. I am impacted when it's a moving vehicle that has parked in the bike lane. That's not unsafe for me as a cyclist, or if they've done it in a crosswalk, unsafe for me as a pedestrian. So that is the main problem is I think that if we're going to list 3 times.
it's wordy. I guess
use for
what you're saying.
residents, we need
It's
to at
wordy.
least mention delivery vehicles in every place that we mention the purpose for it.
So just add it here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
In the last 2
I'm all-
whereas they
makes some
both
sense to
talk
me.
about everything except delivery vehicles. Delivery trucks. So you could add so that delivery trucks, load and unload, residents can utilize the space for loading and unloading and for hire vehicles. And where we do the exact same thing in the next paragraph.
Sherry,
Worded differently.
you had something to say, Sherry, right?
Yeah, I had a comment in this resolution for Seward Park. It's very clearly, these loading zones are called neighborhood loading zones. But in the other one for Clinton, there's no reference to that name. I was just wondering if there's an official name.
So
Is it neighborhood or commercial?
it's 2 different types of
Two different
loading
types,
zones. So
okay.
the commercial loading zones, you have to have commercial plates to use. That would be your box truck or Amazon or FedEx. And neighborhood loading zones serve multiple purposes. So it's commercial vehicles can use them, private vehicles, if you're picking up or dropping someone off, for hire vehicles. So they have more uses in the neighborhood.
Well, I guess in the Seward,
That one is. cool.
on the Clinton Street, there's no distinction.
It is only commercial.
It doesn't say that.
It's just a loading zone. It's an
You just say
existing,
commercial.
what it is expanding an existing loading zone
oh,
that
okay.
happens to be.
That's commercial.
I think is when I had mistakenly brought up Stanton Street of wanting to add that one is going to be in the neighborhood.
Oh,
Loading
okay,
zone.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So you didn't put it in the title there.
Correct. So we'll do that, next month.
So in those last 2 whereases, when we start toward the end, we've got rambling clauses talking about residents. We should start those clauses with so that commercial can be very, just a few words, I'm sorry, it's going to be delivery trucks
Which one?
I think
may load and unload.
why don't we bring up just to
Commercial
this
delivery
point,
trucks.
commercial delivery, this whereas with the rise in the use of all kinds of delivery, making that above this whereas.
Above
Just
the-
moving it up. Yeah.
Make it the 3rd whereas, we'll swap those 2, 3rd and 4th. Okay.
Yeah.
And then and add the clause so that commercial trucks may load and unload, commercial delivery trucks may load and unload into the other two
Other
paragraphs. where we-
And.
And I'm doing this because I think it makes it stronger, not because I think that the other uses aren't entitled. I've been advocating for these things for all these purposes for a long time too. I just think that
So we just have to kind of.
I'm very nervous just because of the letter that Michelle got, which I think is bogus.
Did she get that as because she's a resident?
Get rid of general pickup.
Just strictly as a resident?
I mean, I'm on the board also, but why that has any like, he's just basically, like, the CIV lawyers are basically like, because this directly affects you. And I asked if that precluded other co-op board members from voting, and he didn't respond. But like, he's saying like, if it was more than a block from your apartment, you could vote on it. I'm like, that is a standard that's insane. Community board members vote on stuff across the street from them literally constantly. That is what we do. That's why we're on the board. And that is why we have different rules. So I truly believe that he's wrong. I've never heard this before. I've been on the board for 5 years. David's a parliamentarian for how many years? You've never.
20, I repeatedly voted for the liquor license directly downstairs from me numerous times.
But then, but what I could say is like when we voted, because I remember this is very controversial. When we voted on a policy about transferring liquor licenses, none of the bar owners on the board were allowed to vote, even though it wasn't their bar, it was just a policy.
With a pretty direct financial implications.
Well, but it is, and the wording is I think bad because it isn't just financial. For instance, if you work for the agency, you can't vote. Even though it's
Well, but that's, but I
That is
think
a separate
that
category.
there's a separate category for community board members and other
I'm talking about community board members, like say them.
that are, yeah, I'm just like, my understanding has always been, we've always been told it's only if you have a financial interest in something. That's what it says on the board.
The wording, yes, is bad. If you have a financial interest, you can't. That's true. And I think they are not. So we're actually setting up a meeting. It was with a training for CBs 1, 2, and 3 with the conflict of interest board. More came up more because of elections, but you know, we can actually, if you want to submit a question concerning this whole thing, you can make that part of it.
It just doesn't make sense to me because no one's ever told anyone that they can't vote on an SLA application that's within a block of their house. As David said, he's voted on millions underneath, on his block.
But they can't vote on policy if they own a bar.
But that's
So
a
that's
totally
separate.
different thing than I live there and
Anyway.
therefore it's directly influenced.
So so what I'm suggesting is to understand it better or to argue,
Yeah.
submit a question,
Yeah.
and put it on.
I just, like, if that's the standard, then like community board members are routinely in violation of CIV by that standard. And also where it's capricious and arbitrary. Is it 1 block? Is it 2 blocks? Is it 500 feet? Is it 1,000 feet? Like, how are we supposed to determine that? I mean,
Is it a super block or is it a small block?
yeah, right, yeah, I mean.
It's a big
like,
block.
wow.
So probably get back to it.
I've been,
Yeah.
as I said, I've been on this board for 5 years. I've never heard of this kind of interpretation, and it's deeply confusing and concerning about our like ability to do what we do every day here, so.
We're looking at the training together.
Okay, I mean, I've gone to other ones where we ask questions of them and,
Well,
yeah, so I'm just saying that I've never heard, like,
It's very
I'm not like someone that hasn't gone to a CIV training. I have, and I've called to it many times. And I've never heard of something like this, so I don't really understand what's going on.
Well, the reason that I was saying I thought there was a connection perhaps is because they directly referenced that a letter had come from the board of sewer,
Mhm.
which probably did talk about benefits to the residents. And then that is largely what we picked up in our resolution, but it's not just for the benefits of those
For
residents.
everyone.
It's for everyone. I live a half a mile away and it's definitely to my benefit.
But it's not a financial benefit.
No,
No, I mean, the first thing the
So
lawyer said, I put
when
it straight
it's
for
on,
parking. I was
we have
like,
another
what? Like,
training
that's
coming up.
obscene.
So I want it to be phrased about the general, you know.
Anyway, I hope it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out and figuring this out too. It was a little bizarre, the feedback. Okay, so getting back to here, and David, thanks for your comments. Nancy and I did a little wordsmithing here, so we did kind of just put in delivery trucks and kind of join that all together. So if it's okay, I'll read it off pretty quick. I'm gonna start after some of the beginning stuff. So I'm gonna start, whereas with the rise in the use of all kinds of delivery services, including Fresh Direct, Amazon, UPS, and FedEx, delivery trucks increasingly park in moving traffic lanes, impeding the flow of vehicular traffic, leading to honking and unsafe pedestrian conditions. And whereas currently commercial delivery trucks and Seward Park cooperative residents must load and unload in the travel lane in front of buildings, and also ride shares and taxis waiting for residents must idle in the travel lane, causing traffic congestion and noise pollution. And whereas the Seward Park Cooperative General Manager and Board of Directors has asked Community Board 3 to support the implementation of a permanent neighborhood loading zones in front of their buildings, Grand Street and East Broadway, which would limit traffic impacts because commercial delivery trucks and residents would no longer need to use travel lanes for loading and loading. So therefore be resolved that CD3 supports the proposal for the addition of 60-foot long, approximately 3 or 4 car lengths, permanent neighborhood loading zones next to buildings.
Another one.
David?
So the words we've said in front of those addresses, and then in the last one, we said adjacent to. Can we make both of those in the vicinity of?
Makes sense?
Because as, like, even as Michelle was saying, you know, what we may have drafted the request, it's, we're wanting them to do the right thing. I think that Clinton and Grand are most impacted. And if that meant putting them on East Broadway made it the best, that'd be great. But there's one building you can't get them from East Broadway, but you know what I mean? I think letting DOT look at the situation. So in the vicinity of.
Did we want to add in the whole, or working, if we're asking DOT to coordinate with the building? How do we all feel about adding that in? It seems
We've
appropriate.
asked them to reach out to
Yeah.
stakeholders, including,
So that would be a second one, I guess.
if you want, it's great.
And also, I guess, right? That CB Community Board 3 requests DOT to work with the Seward Park Cooperative General Manager on locations.
Yeah, because
While-
it certainly has to be convenient for those four
Yeah.
buildings, or they're not going
General
to be
manager
used.
on locations for convenience to deliveries. I mean, do we have to say while, and understand that DOT will provide what is allowed or safe? I don't even know if we have to say that. DOT regulation. I like that. Okay, so therefore be further resolved that the CV3 request DOT to work with Seward Park General Manager on locations for convenience to deliveries and in accordance with DOT regulations.
I've got one question that might be a recommendation. Is the first time I read this on my own, it was not explicitly clear to me that we are recommending at least 4 specific zones. I want to make sure, is the number at least 4, we're keeping this generic purposefully? Or is it helpful to give a number or not, I guess is the question. We list 4 addresses, I know that, but we never actually say how many number of zones that were requested.
Oh, that's a really good question. Because you could say, I mean, do we say at least 4 or is it at least 3? I mean, like, or, I mean, this
We need to
is,
specify.
yeah,
Where we leave it to DOT's determination as to,
This is the needs everyone's having.
because, Kate, if I remember, like DOT, you have like the amount of like people in those buildings to loading zones. Isn't there some guidance that their DOT has? Or am I making this up in my head?
So for the neighborhood loading zones, when we're citing those, we look for locations where there is a high density residential and commercial usage. We also look for blocks that have a history of double parking and, you know, usually We also look at ones if there's bike lane in proximity where the cars are double parking into it. So there are a variety of factors that we take into account for the neighborhood loading zones.
So maybe here, instead of actually saying minimum 4, that there's like 4 block faces, right? You've got Clinton, East Broadway, you have Grand Street, and then you have Grand Street east of Montgomery. I forget which one. Like it's each block face, and we want to just say there, consider a loading zone in each block face to these buildings, which is 4 block faces, I believe. West of Montgomery, right? West of Montgomery.
Yeah.
And then west of,
Helpful.
west of Clinton, and then you got East Broadway, and then you've got.
Yeah. So just felt like the way it was written now, it's clear who these zones are supporting,
Yeah.
but it's not explicitly clear that we are asking for multiple zones.
Where it's,
basically.
so maybe on the, therefore be further resolved that CB3 requests DOT to work with Cedar Park General Manager on locations for convenience to deliveries on each block face. I don't know if that's a terminology to use, but on each,
On each of these 4.
on each of these, yeah,
I
because we don't
would
mention.
recommend that we do not get that specific, but I'm not going to care, but I don't know.
And it's
I
not
don't want to
helpful.
get specific about which block faces or how many.
I don't think we should do that because one that said Clinton Street, which is not an address here, so. I don't
Yeah,
want to confuse DOT. But I would be specific about the locations, I guess.
that was the only reason why I was bringing it up is because Clinton Street was mentioned and it isn't located as an address, but it is where deliveries are. Seems to be being held,
They come on both Clinton and East Broadway.
yeah. Because that's what, I mean, it's hard when these super blocks, right? The address is just the building,
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean the building faces Clinton Street as much as it faces Grand Street. I don't know, I'm okay to just leave it as generic and let them figure it out. But, okay, all right. Okay, anything else? All right, let's see if we can do this as a vote with hands again. All in favor?
it's not voting.
Any non-vote, we have all in favor except 1, which is a non-voter, so we are 8 yes.
Present.
Yeah, actually, did I count right? 1, 2, 3.
No,
Yeah, we're
I was
9.
not voting. Oh, wait. Oh, we're doing. No.
It doesn't say PNB there. You can just add in 1
It
PNB.
does. Yeah, she's good.
Actually, we're 9 yeses now, because we have.
Can you also?
Can you also-
Michelle, it's a matter of common courtesy when you're referring an individual by name to CO5B. Just as common courtesy, it would be nice to say, Lee, I'm referring to you, trying to defend or fight something that I think is a problem.
Yeah, Sure. Well,
Yes.
it's all confidential. I'm just trying to. How.
All right, sorry, guys, we're just gonna keep moving forward. All right, so we are done with, that one. Thanks for the folks from Seward Park who joined us this evening. We're gonna move on. So the next topic is, informational presentation, from DOT about the arches. Welcome, pretty excited about this. Actually, I just went past there the other day. It's great. So I appreciate it.
Are you able to share the presentation, Nancy?
And I think, and I'm sorry, just to clarify, this is just outside of our community board, or is it in?
It's part of it is in.
Part of it is in?
Trevor's telling me, I just learned this. Trevor said there's a little bit in.
A little bit in,
So
okay.
at some point, seems like maybe we should be voting, and since it's so much of a waterfront issue at that point, it might be joint. It's DOT property, but it's also waterfront, so it might be joint committee for that item.
Got it, okay. All right, I'll hang on, thanks, sorry.
No, thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. My name is David Breen. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at DOT's Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office. I'm here with Kate this evening, as of course you all know, and also Rosa Chang, who's from Gotham Park, who's our plaza partner. So we're here this evening to give you an update and overview of the Brooklyn Bridge Arches Working Group, and just so you are fully aware. We gave the same presentation to your neighbours in CB1 just before the holidays, and so we're here today to share the same information with you. So first off, just a bit of background on the role of the Arches Working Group, and there's a slide in a moment, but just in case, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the area that we're talking about the newly established public spaces immediately adjacent to the Brooklyn Bridge. So if you can picture the Brooklyn Bridge, and you can picture Park Row to the, depends on which way you look at the map, but if you think of Park Road to the west and Pearl Street to the east, Frankfort Street to the south, the spaces immediately adjacent to that are now referred to as the Arches Plaza. So late last year, DOT, in cooperation and coordination with City Hall and our partner agencies at Department of Parks and Recreation, Police Department, and so on, formed the Arches Working Group with the core focus of working together to establish the future vision of what these new public spaces could be. So the idea is that we form this group where we present ideas, we share ideas, we gather feedback from affected community stakeholders to really work together to shape what this long-term vision of these newly created, or I should say newly restored public spaces could be. So these are the high-level goals that are on the screen right now. And we had our first meeting in late summer, early fall of last year, which I believe you were able to attend. You had a representative there. If you could go to the next slide, please, Nancy. So this is just a list of all of the members of the working group that we've been able to assemble. So city agencies, as I said, your local, state, and federal representatives, your neighbours at CB1, as said, and then some key adjacent local stakeholders. Gotham Park, Brooklyn Bridge Manhattan, our plaza partner, the Murray Bertram High School, which is immediately adjacent to the space to the north, Pace University, which occupies the space to the south, and then the Alfred E. Smith houses, which is to the immediate east of the space. So here's an overview of the spaces that we're talking about, and I'll move a bit closer to the screen so I can point. But just to help orientate yourself, the line on the south here, that's Frankfort Street. This is the Brooklyn Bridge, obviously running through the middle of the slide. This is Park Row. This is Rose Street in the center, and to the far east is Pearl Street. And Pearl Street happens to be the boundary between CB1 and CB3. So the color coding, just to explain the color coding here, as some of you may have seen, you may have already visited, the spaces that are shown in green are the spaces that have already been opened and returned to public use. To take one step back, I'm sure as many of you know, these spaces have been closed to the public for many, many years. Their most recent function has been to provide space for construction staging. As at DOT, we go about the very important work of maintaining and restoring the Brooklyn Bridge. But as our current contract is being completed, we're able to turn these spaces over back to public use with the dedicated use of our partner at Gotham Park. So the spaces in green are the spaces which are currently opened. And the most recent addition to the family is the space which is called out here as 1B, but that's the space which is immediately adjacent to Park Row. The spaces which are shown in pink are the areas that our contractor is still either working on to finish the restoration of, or using to support their construction operation. But the intent, the goal, is for all of these spaces to be restored to public use later on this year. We're working towards the summer to complete all of that work. So that's where we are right now. And as said, kind of returning to the goals of the working group, the intent is, now that all of these spaces are open, now that they're going to be available for public use, what happens next? What does the future look like for these spaces? And so that's really the type of input that we want to be able to gather collectively as a working group. Next slide, please, Nancy. Here's just a couple of photographs of the most recently reopened space, for those of you who haven't been able to see it yet, but this is obviously the Brooklyn Bridge on the edge of here. These are the arches, which have recently been restored. to the, we're looking south here, but to the right of the screen is Park Row. If you, just to help you orientate yourselves. But those are the newly restored spaces. So late last year, we worked with colleagues at USDOT to prepare and submit a grant application as part of the Biden administration's Reconnecting Communities program. We submitted those materials in September of last year with the intent or the hope of either gaining some funding for the future planning work or even for the construction of these spaces going into the future. Spoiler alert, some of you may have seen this in the press just last week, but we were actually thrilled to announce that we've been allocated some money for the planning of this work, which is really going to fund and propel the working group going forward. We're working now with City Hall and our colleagues in Washington, DC to really kind of begin the process of crafting exactly what that scope of work will look like and what that timeline will look like. So no news to share on that front, other than the fact that we're extremely excited to have received this allocation and begin our work in earnest. Next slide, please. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Rosa to walk you through a few slides, and I think starting with a video. It's not on this one, but I think that's if you're able to share it. But a few slides about Gotham Park as an organization and their role in the creation of these spaces.
Do you want to play the video? Yes, please play. Is there? Hold on.
Are you muted, Nancy, on the actual?
This is video?
Yes. My Zoom video. Yeah.
You know, if you send us this stuff in advance, we could actually put it on a website so that people could watch it before the meeting too.
I could possibly play it on my iPad, but then it wouldn't be listenable to the people.
Yeah.
Just give us the idea, Rosa. Tell us what it's all about.
Okay, you can play the,
Or maybe without sound.
actually, can we try simultaneous playing? Yeah. Okay, so go to the very beginning, and let's see if I can make this work.
And if you could put the microphone like right up to it.
Oh, that's so smart, okay. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
The entirety of this space is so important downtown because it's such a congested area. This is a nexus of all of these neighborhoods around.
It's building a bridge of understanding, just makes the community more vibrant. This will definitely open up for us, maybe a sign of hope.
Gotham Park is going to be responsible for not only connecting the communities and the areas of Lower Manhattan, but the city as a whole.
If you look around the surrounding neighborhood, there aren't that many parks in this area.
This park was a favorite place for me to come ride my bike when I was younger.
We serve the Seaport, we serve Chinatown, we serve Tie-Dye. We have Murray Bertram High School right next to us, Pace University right next to us. A lot of schools, a lot of students.
It's a third space, you know, school, like, work. And I hope communities need third spaces to like especially folk. And I'm never going to get people going in a car or at work / school or at home. When I'm at a park, you could just go in somewhere.
We also have our NYCHA housing near us, and a lot of those housing act as naturally occurring retirement communities. So we have a lot of seniors that we serve too.
The potential here is just awe-inspiring.
Rosa Chang is amazing. Her vision is exquisite. We listened to her, we thought it was really fanciful and that it would never happen, but she pushed it forward. We're taking leftover, almost abandoned space And so we want to make it into this place that gives to the community in a way that helps us, the people that live and work around here, thrive. There is a whole plan for what this 9 acres can be. And it is about dreaming really big, honestly, because you only have one shot at doing it right.
And it is so exciting to have it open again. You know, people are already volunteering to plant flowers and so forth. And we're talking earlier, everybody put up some spotted lantern fly traps and install them maybe in the spring.
We also do a lot of community events. I have regular programs here like Zumba, yoga, cleanup on Saturdays, pickleball.
Yoga really is beneficial for all age groups, but especially seniors.
This spot is very special. The space was very safe and welcoming to train. It just felt like I belonged.
There was these 2 girls, like they had belly dance for like, they were like, you wanna come join? I was like, yeah, it was really great. Loved it. We have opened up some acreage over there. There's some green space over there, and then across the street from the green space, there's like basketball courts.
We are here with Community Connect and our local partners and residents from the Lower East Side talk about how can we use the new open space of Gotham Park to address mental health in our community.
I have 2 kids, 10 and 13, and they come here all the time. Louis loves it here.
Nephews and nieces. Sometimes certain parts are packed. Too many grown-up kids. So over here is really nice.
We're really lucky that this little space is open and it needs to be much bigger. It hasn't been open that long and there's already people enjoying it.
Everybody uses the parks here, gets from the school, this building, or in the neighborhood.
And it's a good part, a lot of students go there, it's a good thing for the community, there's a lot of high school students. I always see a bunch of like tourists, they come by and they ask, how do I get to the Brooklyn Bridge, and where do I get?
This morning, I just noticed that they're working on the sidewalk now. So probably they will not stay.
Been a really big part of my life at Brooklyn Banks. It's also good for us, for the children, and for the elderly, because we also have elderly friends, people coming up and down. So, we enjoy it. It makes you happy. It makes you happy.
That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
I got excited because that was Lincoln, who was in my building, and his Eagle Project, Boy Scouts, is actually this lantern fly catching project.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Oh, my
Oh,
God,
look at that.
exactly. He was also, he was at the
Perfect.
opening. Yep. My name is Rosa Chang, co-founder and president of Gotham Park, and we are in an endeavor that started in January of 2021 to try to unlock and reopen 9 acres of space. And so we're slowly getting there bit by bit. We're super excited actually to be the plaza partner for DOT to take care of this space. We think that, infrastructural projects that are enormous, like the Brooklyn Bridge, are incredibly, it's the Brooklyn Bridge, oh God. But where it lands, a lot of times it actually lands like a wall that separates our very diverse communities. And so in our community, as you know, being on CB3, we are separated north and south on the Brooklyn Bridge, but we are also separated from the water with the FDR. And our communities are not connecting, and they haven't been for a really long time. And so we were thinking that maybe this could be a place that doesn't actually continue to separate us, but actually provides a public space to bring us all together. And if you look on all of your maps right behind you, which are awesome, by the way, we should have those in C1, you see that there isn't that much green space. What green space we have is by the water for the most part, definitely for open and active recreation use. And so we're looking to create spaces for us to be able to do that. And we think that open space is actually the main connector and builder of community, because you're not connecting with your friends and neighbors in your own apartment by yourself, as we learned during COVID very starkly. You get to do that when you are in spaces and you get to talk to people and meet people and come together around a shared passion or a shared something. And so we thought that, this could be that space for our community where we have such a lack of open space. DOT has been amazing. They are incredible partners and they have worked with us to actually open space little bit by little bit, with the most recent space opening in November. And as David presented, we have more space coming, which we're super excited about this year. So we wanted to share what we've been up to. We've been to the community board twice before. We have, thank you very much. We actually went presented to Waterfront and Parks and got a resolution in support for our efforts. And so we have been, can you bring up the next slide? Sorry. There should be more slides after from the DOT presentation past the video that didn't work. So we have been busy. We have spent all of our time actually just advocating, meeting with community stakeholders, reaching out. And now that we have open space, we are starting to actually utilize that space in earnest. And that is what brings us here. Sorry. Thing. So last month, we actually had a mental health programming session with Community Partners University Settlement and the Durrell Initiative, and that was done at Urban Assemblies or Murray Bertram High School, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. They were awesome hosts to be able to talk about, like, how do you reach people where they are? How do you reach them at a moment when they may, really be open to and want support and connection with the community? And how do we address the mental health issues that we are seeing? Frankly, the high school students especially, they were in school during COVID. And those are formative years for like learning how to do relationship building and how to communicate with your neighbors. And so this is a way to think about how we can create spaces that really bring people together regularly and create almost a social safety net that might help catch you in a weak moment. So we had over 40 attendees, diverse attendees from around the community, and we discussed how the site, the open park space, could help to contribute to all of that. And we are also looking at, how can we create programming that actually helps and supports community building. So that's something that we just started, and we are going to be working on more fully through 2025. And so we will definitely be sharing all of our information about our future Community Connects, and hope that some of you will participate or that you will share it within your network so that we can have broader reach throughout the community. Then the next slide is some of what we have been doing and will continue to do. We are actually, my team would normally be here, but it's just me tonight. They're actually presenting tonight at Southbridge Towers. Last month, they presented at Chatham Green. We are scheduling time at Chatham, at Alfred E. Smith Houses and Chatham Tower. We're basically working from like literally next door neighbor and slowly outwards, because we want to let people know that we're there, that we're open, that we have free programming on a weekly basis, although, obviously in the winter months, it's a little, harder. And show the different ways that we're trying to impact the community, but also just really get input about like what they're interested in seeing in this newly open public space. Because, we thought salsa was going to be great, but it just totally didn't stick. But Zumba, my goodness, I mean, there's like so much love of Zumba, who knew? And of course, our skateboarding is always popular, and we are going to, just so you guys know, it's actually a famous skateboarding spot called the Brooklyn Banks. And so we have had, we've been fortunate enough to have the support of Tony Hawk's Skate Park Project to help us with this initiative. And so skateboarding is just part of the heart of this place. And so we do free equipment giveaways for our local low-income youth. We've done 2 so far. We're planning another one for the spring. We do community block parties. I think our first one in November had like 300 people. Our second one last spring had 2,000. Like it was but we also had to staff up to be able to make that happen. By the way, all of this is free. So everybody should come and like have fun and let's see, oh, also we are starting a community advisory council. So if anybody is interested in participating more fully and being able to contribute on where you think that this should go and what would be helpful and is needed in the community, we absolutely welcome that. It's rosa@gothampark.org. We are planning a Lunar New Year fair on site, our first ever since we have gotten slightly bigger in size. So February 6th to 9th, we hope to see you there. I'm going to remember every single one of your faces and keep track of whether you show up or not. And on May 3rd, we are having, that's not a little. May 3rd, we are having our annual community block party. So this year we expect it's going to be even bigger and better. And so we hope to see you there as well. And then our annual Go Skate Day. I personally cannot skate. I would break something if I did, but it's really fun to watch them too. So I guess I'm saying that whether you skate or not, we would love to have you there to celebrate with us and watch them do these crazy daredevil things that they do. We are also planning, so we're in a New York Times article last year, and I said I can see opera because the space is just so majestic. It really lends itself to things that are majestic, and we want to integrate art and culture, free performances for the community. And then someone reached out to us after that article and was like, hey, we do outdoor opera, let's talk. And so we're gonna have, we're putting on 3 opera shows, free to the public this year that we're planning. And obviously, you know, we have incredible relationships with our local school partners. So Urban Assembly Maker Academy at Murray Bertram is one that we work super closely with on an environmental program called GROUP, which is Grassroots Planters, because we want to solve climate change and we think kids are really smart, and so they should have a strong say in what's happening to the world that they're inheriting. And we also worked on that with environmental studies students at Pace University. So, and we also dragged in DOT, MOCEJ, NYPD counterterrorism, DEP, our neighbors at Alfred E. Smith, specifically the seniors. So we are all about collab, and we hope that you know, you guys are, you know, able to like point us to certain people that you think might be interested in the site to work with to create something that is truly beneficial for the entire community. We are going to start back up when the weather gets better with Zumba and yoga and pickleball. Would love thoughts on programming that you think would be interesting. As you mentioned, Lincoln, we have a lot of people who, students specifically, who use the site for citizen science, and we welcome and encourage that. So Lincoln is doing an Eagle Scout, and for his Eagle Scout project, he is doing a lantern fly catching mechanism prototype at the base of our trees, just to see, like one tree just to see, like, does it work? Which is really fun. Pace University actually used our site for citizen science as well. The students actually did air monitoring, soil testing, and water testing. So our soil and our air is awesome. By the way, we get a great breeze off the East River. People were worried because we're directly at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge, but the air is awesome. Our water coming from the scuppers right off the bridge, however, not so good. So that's part of the group planter project, to filter that water with plants and soil.
That's great. And I just wanted to keep you moving. I'm sorry, we still have another agenda.
Oh, so sorry.
But I love what you're talking about. I'm terrible to interrupt you.
Is there any?
Oh, okay, no, I can say basically, we love you guys. Come often, speak often, and we welcome all interaction, and come visit us at the park.
That's great. Thank you for all the advocation. I've, you know, I don't think I've ever met you in person, but I've heard your name. I've read the articles in the New York Times. So thank you for all the advocation. Thank you to DOT for actually opening the site back up for the community and reconnecting the neighborhood. It's fantastic. It's great. To your point, David, of like transportation. So this is a transportation committee. So this is kind of one of those things I think that we're gonna figure out internally here.
Presented at Parks.
Yes.
I had no
At Parks.
idea they were coming.
Okay, yeah, so that's fair. And so I think from our standpoint, I think from this committee, I guess, is like we're interested in like the community connection that you're talking about and those types of things. And I had the question I have on it is, so the property is owned by DOT. It's been closed from the contractor using it to do the renovation, which looks beautiful. Is it kind of like what is being turned back to the community, like as like a reconditioned of what it was, like the pavement all the same and all that kind of?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what the contractor has been doing now and is currently doing as we speak, withstanding, is restoring the prior condition. So there's red brick. The space was once known as Red Brick Park. They're restoring those red bricks right now. So the existing condition, the prior condition is being restored. And then really what we want to do going forward as part of the working group is, now that the spaces have been restored back to their prior condition, what does the future look like?
Yeah.
What can we add in terms of amenities? What can we add in terms of other landscaping? So on and so forth. So it's really establishing the base and now looking forward.
Got it. Okay. Anybody on the video?
So it's great that it'll be available for public space, but I'm assuming it's going to remain not called a park, not becoming a park under state law, so that you can repair the bridge if necessary without state law.
That's correct. Yeah, the space is under DOT's jurisdiction, and so it will form part of our Plaza program. It does form part of our Plaza program, which is how we manage the use of public spaces within the city, within DOT's jurisdiction. So just down the street from here, we have Astor Place, for example, which is another one of our projects. It will be managed in the same way. And plazas come with, they come with two things. They come with a partner, right? So we work with an on-the-ground local community not-for-profit organization who acts as our steward, as our partner to manage and maintain the space. But then it also comes with a series of quality of life rules, modeled very carefully, modeled very closely on parks rules that create some governance in terms of activities which are allowed and which are not allowed, so on and so forth.
So does this structure help keep funding in place so that it gets maintained as a public space, or is that something that's considered?
So the way that the Plaza program is structured is that when the spaces are established and we have a partner on board, the partner becomes responsible for the maintenance of those spaces. That requires entering into an agreement with DOT, and we offer two types of agreements. One is a maintenance agreement, which allows the partner to generate revenue for the maintenance of the space through limited sponsorship. So you could have, this planter is sponsored by X, and that sponsor would give sponsorship funds to the partner, and the partner would then use those funds to contribute towards the maintenance of the space.
Okay.
We also offer a concession agreement, which is one step beyond that, which in addition to limited sponsorship, allows our partners to generate revenue through the hosting of commercial events. So those would be permitted events that a commercial entity is hosting, a TV commercial, for example, something of that nature. And also through the management of a sub-concession. And that's exactly what you see at Astor Place. So the coffee place, for example, that's right there by the Cube, that's an example of a plaza sub-concession. So the revenue that, in this case, the Village Alliance is generating through that kiosk goes back to the bid, in that case, and they use those funds to maintain the space. And so that is an agreement track that we're on with Rosa and her team to allow for that revenue generation, which will supplement the maintenance work and the programming work that they'll be doing going forward.
And so this the partnership is with your
Gotham Park is there.
Yeah, we're the partners.
Okay, thanks.
Just for clarification, what we generally, it's DOT jurisdiction, which I don't think we were aware even a while ago. But because it's waterfront, the waterfront public space is generally at the Parks Waterfront Committee. So they have presented, there and gotten resolutions there and everything. So it's been ongoing at CV3.
I should actually disclose, I'm on the board of Gotham Park and I work very closely with Rosa. Immensely proud of what she and her team have done, but that's just so that you guys can keep me honest in the event that we have, just going forward, because I think, as we do more work and we're, looking for support from CV3, so just wanted to put it out there.
Great. Anybody else? thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's just great work. I mean, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Nancy, can you promote Luis? He's one of the panelists. He's from Workers' Justice. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. All right, so the next but not least, so this is the last one. Was this in December? Or, no, this was November, October.
Yeah, I think it was 2 months ago, Sean, yeah. It was 2 months ago that Workers' Justice came and presented to the board. We actually had connected with them because of the delivery bikes on 11th Street, which I could give a little update on after if you want me to. So what the committee had agreed at that last meeting was to write up a resolution supporting certain transportation infrastructure needs for deliveries. And what we did is took their plan and took only, their plan is much bigger, more encompassing because it has a lot of social justice issues, but we looked only at the transportation, public safety infrastructure. And from that plan, came up with the draft resolution. Sean's seen it, but you haven't commented on it. So if you could put the resolution up, it's, based all on the presentation to the committee. And, particularly if Louise from Workers' Justice has any comments, it would be good to hear.
Luis, if you'd like to speak, you could unmute and you could speak.
But he hasn't seen the resolution at all.
Hi, Luis. If you are able to speak, in order for us to hear you, have to unmute yourself or see that you're muted.
We didn't ask him to make a presentation or anything.
Okay. If you don't want to speak, it's fine.
I was interested in hearing any comments on the resolution.
Okay. So Nancy's going to bring up the resolution. So yeah, so this was the one that we heard. It was actually pretty enlightening for me, that presentation. So it was really good to hear. And yeah, and thanks to the office here working, putting this draft together. And so let me go ahead and read it and we can talk about it. Okay, so whereas Community District 3 has been experiencing a substantial demand for app delivery by its residents, resulting in high volume of delivery workers, deliveristas, on e-bikes delivering food as well as other deliveries. This results in areas of the community with many bikes and lack of infrastructure to accommodate the bikes for workers, including infrastructure for workers to wait, rest, and eat. And whereas high volume of delivery workers with a lack of transportation infrastructure leads to unsatisfactory conditions for both delivery workers and pedestrians, local residents, and businesses, insufficient parking space for delivery workers makes it difficult for workers to comply with proper bike parking. The lack of infrastructure also results in bikes being stolen. Workers often must eat and rest on the sidewalk to watch the bikes or lock many bikes together to prevent them from being stolen. The bikes are often on the sidewalk, causing lack of access and making it difficult to clean garbage. And whereas Community Board 3 has received multiple concerns from residents, property owners, businesses, NPS 19, and whereas areas with crowded delivery workers and lack of bike parking infrastructure in some areas result in NYPD confiscating bikes that can cost up to thousands of dollars and pose threats to the livelihood of the delivery workers. And whereas deliveristas face challenges that include limited workplace protections, unsafe street conditions, and lack of adequate infrastructure, which impacts their safety, financial stability, and overall well-being. And whereas the app algorithms cause workers to deliver at high speeds and not comply with safety and traffic regulations, creating safety issues for both pedestrians and workers traveling at high speeds. And whereas the Workers' Justice Project has identified key areas to address to improve the conditions for delivery workers, including street safety and micromobility infrastructure. And whereas the recommendations outlined below align with the community's priorities for equity and safety for all workers in our community. 1, implement stricter oversight of e-mobility vendors. 2, hold app companies accountable for unsafe working conditions. 3, develop a comprehensive street safety education plan. 4, establish safe charging hubs for e-bike batteries. 5, create designated waiting areas for delivery workers. 6, develop rebate programs for certified e-bikes. Therefore, be resolved that Community Board 3 strongly supports the recommendations from Workers' Justice Project to ensure that the needs and voices of delivery workers are centered in infrastructure improvement discussions and that progress is made toward achieving worker equity and safety. Community Board 3 also requests that DOT install bike corrals in areas where parking is needed for delivery bikes, including 11th Street between A and First Avenue and 14th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. Therefore, be it also resolved that DOT create an infrastructure plan that will address rising needs for app deliveries and the workers. David?
I think that app algorithms and app companies, those are mentioned twice, and it's really not clear what that's connected to. I remember the previous presentation, and I understand that the deliveries are effectively gig workers that work for app companies and are assigned delivery tasks through an app. Some sentence like that, I don't know,
What, like to define what app is or something like that?
Yeah, what that means, app algorithms. What I just said is what I think is a situation.
Yeah.
Could that be a sentence used at the beginning of the 6th whereas, where we first say the app algorithms do a thing?
I have a suggestion for that. I was gonna say, maybe there's one, but I think it's like the 5th whereas from the bottom. It says, whereas the app algorithms cause, it's not the algorithms causing this, it's the app companies that are causing this.
Yeah.
So
It's the algorithms created
by the
by the
company, sure,
company.
but knowing that at the end, number 2, the number 2 point in our priorities is hold app companies accountable. We should be pointing to the fault of the companies here.
This is not for them. That's not what the point of this resolution is. The point of this resolution is for the city to create infrastructure and create a plan. It's not after the app.
I understand, but I feel like it's, what we're saying here still isn't correct. It's not app algorithms that are causing this. That would be my push on that.
Right, because
Well,
the
I would
algorithms
say-
themselves are being created by the companies.
Yes,
I mean,
it is the algorithms and companies can create other algorithms. I don't feel strongly about that if we say algorithm created by the companies, that's fine. But the point is definitely not to go after the companies. This is
Well,
about
to push back on it though,
Yeah.
the second point, it does say hold app companies accountable.
for that. But we want DOT to do that.
Sure, right.
Do you want to make a motion, Charlie?
I mean, I would. Do I need to make a motion?
Well,
No, because we're in this discussion, I think, right now.
yeah, I would like to
Yeah.
hear both from Sean, because he's been working incredibly closely with them, and also from Louise, if there may be something we have totally left out, or, I would value their expertise from both Sean and Louise.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we can wordsmith it, however it makes sense, but I think clearly stating that algorithms fall to, not, of course, it's the apps that create the algorithm, but this is a really big sticking point for the delivery workers, because the algorithms are what are forcing, these long travel distances and short amount of times, having to pick up a delivery from here, deliver it, 4 miles, in a span of like 15 minutes or something like that. That's where a lot of these things are coming up. But what I would say, just generally on the resolution, I think it's really well written and speaking to the issues that we as a transportation committee can really address, not getting too caught up in the labor stuff and all that other kind of things that can be taken up in a different space. But I think it's really representative of the desires from the workers. It's not placing the blame on the workers, which I think is really important. It's pointing to solutions, structural solutions that we can do within the district to support the workers that we know are going to be here. They're not going anywhere, versus some other attempts. I think that people have been doing to try to deal with some of the, friction points that have been happening around this issue, which is really like blaming the workers or, trying to fault the workers. And I think that this resolution goes in another direction, so I'm really glad for that.
If I could say, most of that was taken straight from the workers, we would pick and choose from the workers, particularly where it addressed problems that we were having in our community.
I did read super carefully before and was thinking about it, and I think we need to define the relationship between the deliveristas and these app whatevers. And I thought by stating something about them being effectively gig workers for companies who are using apps, and maybe we want to list a couple example companies like we did, or maybe we don't. I don't. We want to support whatever's going to be effective here. Do we want to say Uber Eats? But anyway, companies that are using apps to assign delivery work to the deliveristas. They're gig workers for companies using apps that assign delivery work to the deliveristas.
It's true. I wonder if Luis can.
If we add a sentence like that, I
Luis,
bet that the rest of it works. as is.
There's no doubts on the definition.
Luis,
Luis, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry, I was trying to be, and I'm just doing bedtime with my daughter. So, but I've been listening. But I'm very what I read in your resolution, I think is capturing what we've been talking in Los Deliveristas Unidos, Worker Justice Project. And it's very interesting. We know that companies are not, they have one algorithm. It's like the machine controlling the workers. And it seems like they don't create, they don't have a specific algorithm for New York City. They have like a national thing. So the condition for the city is different than other states or other cities. So I think like putting the focus on the companies that they can adjust this. And there's another issue also. I've been asking workers if companies are interested in following the rules of the traffic rules, if they are getting any message from the company saying, please follow the rules, stop at red line, and they say no. It's like companies are not interested for workers to follow the rules. It's the opposite. If the workers just waiting longer in an intersection, like let's say 30 seconds or 1 minute, the company immediately send them a text message, say, what's going on? Why are you stopping there? So it's like companies have to be accountable in these issues. And we know that workers are right now with a high stressful job because they're constantly rating them. And if they don't perform as the companies want, they deactivate their accounts and they lost their job. So it's a constantly doing this work. And I believe, and we've been today, we did a street outreach talking with workers about safety and following the rules, because we don't want delivery workers paying thousands of dollars on tickets from the police, but also we don't want them to get involved in accident or with pedestrians or with cars. So I think the resolution, what I saw here and I read, I think is very solid.
Thanks, Luis. Sure.
Were you gonna say?
No,
something?
I'll let.
I think I was a little confused about the reference to the Workers' Justice Project and their recommendations. There's 6 recommendations. Because none of those, so I was confused about their recommendations and then what we're recommending in this resolution.
We're supporting their recommendations, which are.
Well, because none of these 6 recommendations are related to infrastructure. And then we try to fit in, we want infrastructure.
Well, it's infrastructure, public safety, it's not, it also involves public safety.
Yeah,
There's that-
education.
Like if the apps cause them to not follow traffic rules, which is a DOT issue, but it's also a public safety issue.
I guess I would just be maybe looking for a little more clarity about what we want to see happen. So we mentioned infrastructure, we mentioned specifically bike corrals, and then we mentioned an infrastructure plan.
We want the city to have one. We also want the city to deal with these app
companies.
You know, the apps that create public safety problems for the workers as well, for for residents, pedestrians, and for workers. That's public safety, it's traffic, because they can't comply with traffic regulations.
So, and I don't know if I'm hearing, sorry, go Lee.
It's not that they can't comply with safety regulations.
They'll get fired if they do.
Except if they all comply with safety regulations, then in theory, the app will conform, because then it is, if everybody is stopping for a red light for 30 seconds, then there is not one person or 20 people who are now faster and no longer covered by the app. So
They get fired.
Yeah,
I mean, I can let Sean
yeah,
speak to that.
I mean, the gig worker economy, I mean, they'll just get fired and replaced, like, I mean, and that is happening here.
Right.
Huh?
Someone else who.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what we're hearing from Luis is that the apps, the companies are actually creating the conditions that are forcing workers into compromised situations.
You see,
Yeah.
you must make this many deliveries in this amount of time, which means if they comply with safety regulations, they will not make their goals set by the app companies, and they get fired.
So this, I mean,
It's horrendous.
I think Sherry brings up an interesting thing to talk about here, because again, it's like, right, there's like the justice part of it, which is, this committee is not gonna be talking about that. We're gonna be talking about the infrastructure, which makes sense, of bike corrals, all these other things.
Right.
But then to the point of Lee and Sharon, what you're bringing up is like this, and David, the going through the red lights, the algorithm part of the companies, of them, more or less, it's creating the incentive to disobey traffic laws, and the companies really are the ones that need to be held accountable for that, not the workers, which again, we shouldn't get into, but it is kind of, the algorithms are driving that, right? So how do we, that fine line of not getting into the justice part of it?
Safety, but it is causing public safety. I don't think, like, there's a lot of legislation they wanted us to support that we're not supporting, because it is not traffic, it is not really, infrastructure, it's traffic. The algorithms affect traffic.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, do we put that as a beef it up and then therefore, like, because it's kind of hidden a little bit.
You want to make it more clear.
Maybe it's, yeah, just that, like, where we say the progress made toward achieving worker equity and safety. So there's that.
I mean, you could even point back in that sentence, you could point back to the 6 points that you listed prior. So we want to support those 6 points, plus an infrastructure plan we want, and specifically bike corrals, perhaps. Maybe we just leave it at an infrastructure plan, because that might
I
include.
think the algorithms are really, really important for public safety. This is also a public safety committee.
They are, and there's no argument against it here.
Yeah.
The last two whereases should be one paragraph. I think whoever drafted this fell into the trap of one whereas must be one sentence, which is false. Those are one thing.
Jen
The
and I
Workers'
drafted it,
Justice-
not the
The Workers' Justice Project, those 6 points are their recommendations. So rather than and the recommendations outlined below, they're detached from what they are.
Oh, and so
So
you're just
please say
joining
a period,
and
and
yeah.
then their recommendations.
outline below, align.
That's gonna help.
That's fine.
So replace semicolon and whereas B by period there. They EIR.
And I also think that first therefore should reference back to their their 6.
And it should,
Their
there's
6,
supports, well, then it'll be clear, the recommendations from the Workers' Justice Project. We have just outlined, explained exactly that.
Yeah.
In the first, whereas above. But when you write resolutions, don't fall into that trap where you think that a whereas is a sentence. It just isn't, it's a paragraph.
Yeah.
So you can.
But thanks
be
for
just
doing all
clear.
the work.
One
No,
more
I'm
question,
not saying
right?
that. I'm really not.
In the spirit of clarity,
Nothing but criticism.
are the recommendations are, just to make sure we're clear, like, are for who? It's for the city, it's for DOT? Are we suggesting that a specific agency?
It's DOT.
Should we say that then? 'Cause
Well, it's going to DOT.
Okay, but
It's
we
going
don't,
to send to DOT.
right, but in our resolution, we don't actually say that.
Well,
those
it
are-
could, that sentence, therefore, could be a little, it could have a direct object, or indirect object, whichever it is,
I would think.
that we recommend so-and-so adopt the recommendations, I suppose. If it's directed at an agency, I think it's the city, because I think it's a number of things, including
Because, you know,
legislation.
the agencies do.
Right.
Out try and be polite. They do what they're told from on top.
I suspect that their recommendations involve legislation. And so we strongly support
They're, yeah, a lot
the
of.
recommendations, but we support who adopt the recommendations. If possible, we should say it. I don't know if it's possible.
It isn't, there is not a piece of legislation that this supports.
Right. I know.
They do have legislation, but it encompasses a lot of stuff that doesn't involve this committee.
So does this become a resolution that the Workers' Justice Project would use to say, look, we're building support for our thing and this is
They
what?
can, you know, we'll send it to them, they can use it, but it's for us to lobby. Don't forget, so not everybody knows, we've been working with DOT on these issues constantly since May. So, you know, this is to give them a lot more strength. One of the things the city has done is they're willing to do these trails. They've already committed to doing them. But it's not a priority and it takes them a year and a half. And that's just for 2 of them that, you know, that we asked for. And, you know, the fact that the city we have increasing number of deliveries, which are only gonna rise and not gonna, and there's no plan. We're beginning to do plans for loading and unloading, which is great, but there's no plans for the bikes. And for the workers. Now, since Workers' Justice Works here, I have also gone back, I'll begin with the 9th precinct, and we actually talked to some of the workers. Luis had done it at an early point with Eugene and I went and talked to some of the workers. And the biggest thing with the bikes and why they're all chained together and why they're sitting there is because they get stolen. They cost thousands of dollars and they get stolen. That is why the infrastructure, you know, people want deliveries. You know, as long as you want deliveries, you gotta provide for it, you have to plan for it. And you can't expect, you know, then we get complaints, people are sitting all over the sidewalk, they're watching their bikes.
Well, and I guess this is where I'm like getting a little bit stuck on is like, we're talking about infrastructure here, which totally 100% support and which I think this talks about, but then we're like getting into the algorithm and what that does for bike culture in New York City. And we're kind of like not addressing it anywhere, but we're saving it, but we're not doing anything. And I don't know if that's okay, if that's the way it's supposed to be, if that's where we want to be here because of what we're doing.
The only reason I included that was because of safety reasons.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that is
I'm not addressing people getting fired or any of that stuff.
correct. And that's where like I kind of want to hear from the folks here of, you know, how do we feel about that? Do we want to delve into that, the culture that's being created by these algorithms, or leave it towards really just infrastructure?
Does it not already do that? I mean, it does talk about high speed and I mean, we could list out.
It does, it just
other
doesn't
traffic
say like,
violations.
it doesn't, you know, and or therefore be resolved. It's just talking about safety, kind of gloss, it just
Therefore
glosses
be
over.
resolved, but earlier in the whereas it did.
Yeah.
There is something where
Can
it
we do
talks
that?
about at high speeds. Maybe it could have a few more clauses in that paragraph. I think it was the 6th one. Maybe it was the one above it. So on this point, this effectively is, okay. It's analogous to passive safety things that you put like, you know, brown striping on the road. actually not illegal to cross, as we've learned, into some of those areas, but it's a strong signal that drivers should not. If you really wanted to argue that just having a law is sufficient, we don't even need sidewalks, we don't need curbs. If you just have a law that says cars shall not drive where pedestrians are, which actually is a law. I mean, car sidewalk, cars are not supposed to do on the sidewalk, but we don't just do that, we also build a curb to prevent the cars from like riding up onto the sidewalk. So I think that I'm in favor of this resolution, if it's strong opinions.
Maybe it might help if the first therefore just was stating that we support the recommendations of the Worker Justice Project, that we put the community board 3 behind their 6 recommendations. And then the second therefore is that we want the city to do a plan, and that plan should probably include bike corrals. So it's kind of clear, it's 2 different things.
Say additionally, it's one that we support their recommendations.
We support the worker.
It's one fully.
And then let's do, and that the city should do an infrastructure plan that should very likely include bike crowds.
Well, I don't say very likely, that should include.
It should.
You know, say that DOT creates an
DOT's
infrastructure
already
plan.
agreed to do them, that's not the
Let's just
issue.
take this whole, oops.
So that
It's
second
making it
sentence.
a priority and doing another.
And put it back, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Because that actually helps my brain work, that this is now.
It's part of the plan. It's the infrastructure plan.
We talked about before, it's actually highlighted in red here about the app companies. We say in 2, it says hold app companies, and then Charlie, I think you said algorithms, app algorithms. Do we want to include company algorithms? Okay.
Yeah,
No downside.
Yeah, I don't see any downside.
just to be consistent.
Yeah, so after app, just write company. Anything else?
We were actually thinking of taking some of these issues to human services.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, this is pretty important.
Do you think the residents want to see the delivery people gone?
Yes, they do not want bike rails, they do not,
Oh, okay.
they want everybody to deliver their food, but it should like somehow
Appear, yeah.
magically appear in the ordinance.
I mean, the other thing with Omar is that we prefer bikes, right? We prefer bikes over box trucks. We don't want more box trucks, we want more of
Yeah.
that short-term delivery to be with, bikes or
Yeah,
some kind
for
of
sure.
small operating.
Yeah, the property owners, for
device.
instance, on Lemon Street do not want bike rooms. However, our council members said, you have to have something. If you don't want bike rails, what do you want? And you don't want them on the sidewalk, and you're complaining about them being on the sidewalk, as you should. And they collect garbage and create rats and, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah. I want to propose that we have this sentence, modify it, but I want us to, okay. I don't know what kind of companies we want to call them. I suggested we might want to list them, but X companies employ deliveristas through a smartphone app account. Through a smartphone account.
Wait, hold on, David, where is this in the where?
I would like in the 6th whereas,
Or 6th.
unless we move things around. It was the first time you say app algorithms. The intro sentence to that.
So where's the app company algorithms? That's what we say now. You want to say what?
Whatever they are, kind of companies. These are like local food companies or something, or maybe just companies. Companies employ deliveristas through a smartphone app.
Hold on. You're wanting this as a separate whereas, or?
No, the
look at-
first sentence in the whereas.
In that,
After the word whereas, before the word the, whereas, where it is in the sentence.
okay.
I think we'll vote on it, but companies employ deliveristas through a smartphone account. And, sorry, app, a smartphone app, and use algorithms to assign delivery work and monitor delivery stuff or worker location. I think that'll make it pretty evident what's going on.
Delivery workers. Location.
Employee deliveristas, which one you up to? Oh, where are you? Sorry. To monitor workers' location, yeah, and monitor worker location. To assign delivery work and monitor delivery worker location, period. Worker instance. So not that, it's a sentence. So whereas companies employ.
Yeah.
So starting back at the word whereas companies employ. Employee, yeah, employee goes through a smartphone app and use algorithms to assign delivery work and monitor your delivery worker. Probably get rid of this on that location. Anyway, I think that makes it clear. Later on, when you say the app algorithm or when you say the companies, it's clear what it's talking about.
That's a good addition. Okay. We got an addition, anybody? Okay. All right, everyone good? All right, let's take a hand vote on this one. All in favor? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in favor.
Okay.
And 1 no.
You lost your baby.
Okay. That's it for the agenda. So we'll do a roll call. Oh, I took it. Nope, this is yours. Here.
Vincent Cerruto.
Here.
Here. Lee Vernon.
Still here.
Solomon Bashir.
Yeah.
Sean Garcia.
Here.
Charlie.
Here.
Michelle. Smith. John Yao. Sherry Ryan. Here. David Green.
Here.
Is her name down there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
We got her. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you.